Firo House, Africa's first industrial TV reality show, produced and packaged by Lashon Links Limited. For details on how to be part of the show, please visit our website on www.firohouse.tv or call 081-873-55745. Lashon Links Firo House, bringing Nigerian technology.
To conduct a rerun election in 4 local governments in Osun State.
President Buhari in New York for 73rd session of United Nations General Assembly.
NPC management urges oil workers to halt proposed industrial action.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall look at Presidential Committee on Northeast Initiative 2 years on, plus review of Osun State governorship election. For almost 1 decade, Nigerians, particularly in the Northeast, have been passing through traumatic experience.
Now, this is as a result of activities of the Boko Haram insurgents who terrorized the country with devastating impact on the northeastern states of the country.
Available statistics show that more than 4 million people were displaced, with about 300,000 homes totally destroyed. The number of homes partially destroyed is put at about 430,000. This ultimately rendered more than 2,500,000 people homeless.
Now, worried by the level of devastation and the condition of the victims, the federal government established the Presidential Committee on Northeast Initiative in 2016.
The committee is the apex coordinating body for all interventions in the region, including those by the public, private, national and international development partners.
Now, the whole idea amongst the mandates is to rebuild, rehabilitate and recover affected areas ravaged by insurgency, in addition to the development of the entire Northeast, with the end goal of promoting economic growth.
At the inauguration of the committee, under the leadership of General Theophilus Danjuma, President Muhammadu Buhari said government is committed to providing effective coordination and guidance towards addressing the humanitarian crisis, the resettlement and reconstruction of the Northeast region.
So the question this morning is, how has the committee fared in discharging its mandate 2 years after? What are the challenges and what should be done moving forward to achieve the set objectives?
These are some of our talking points as we discuss the PCNI journey so far on today's edition of the program Good Morning Nigeria. My name is Kiriam Umayo. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the first edition of the program this week, broadcast live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. And
I'm Rhoda Anonam. I join Kirian this morning in welcoming you to the very first edition for this week. And of course, it rained cats and dogs yesterday morning here in the nation's capital, where we're reaching you live from. That's Abuja. But I think it's clear skies this morning,
exactly,
Kirian.
Exactly.
Clear skies. And of course, also on the program this morning, we shall be reviewing the Osun State governorship election, which ended inconclusive, and hence a supplementary election scheduled for Thursday in the 4 affected local government areas of the state. Kieran.
Now, talking about that election on Saturday, it was indeed a tough one between the two major parties.
And of course, indeed, for once, I would say that INEC got a lot of, applause, for a job well done. Lots of talking point this morning on that, on what happened on Saturday and what we're expecting to see on Thursday.
On Thursday, all right, of course. But when we get there, we'll, of course, do further analysis on that. Well, as usual, we shall present our companion segments, which include a newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and entertainment news. But by the way, Rhoda, you're welcome back again on the beat. You've been away for a while now.
Thank you very much, Kira.
Right,
of course, it's sure good to be back. I was watching and...
you begin to learn how to wake up early in the morning. All right, now, before we continue, let's take the morning news with Kehinde Olale. Kehinde, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kirian, and it's good to see you again, Rhoda. President Muhammadu Buhari is in New York ahead of his address to the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that this is the fourth time the president will be addressing the world's largest diplomatic gathering since coming to power.
When a president can address the world through the United Nations platform, he better bring everything that is very important to him and to his country. But the significant thing for the Nigerian president this year is that he will not only be talking about Nigerian issues, he will be talking about ECOWAS issues, because he's chairman of ECOWAS, so everything that affects the sub-region he can bring up at this global forum now.
Meanwhile, wife of the president, Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, is in New York for the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly alongside President Muhammadu Buhari. A statement by Director of Information of the State House, Suleiman Aruna, says while in New York, Mrs. Buhari will address the General Assembly's high-level meeting on tuberculosis, where she will be speaking to issues of increased political commitment, funding and robust partnership on the 26th September. Mrs. Buhari will also address a session at the 21st Summit of Organization of African First Ladies Against AIDS, which will hold at the Onga on the sideline of the Organization of African First Ladies Against AIDS. Mrs. Buhari will attend a number of high-level events, including a stakeholders meeting on breast and cervical cancer in Africa, and another on HIV, as well as strategic meeting workshop for First Ladies and their technical advisors. And now on politics, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has declared the Osun State governorship election inconclusive. The returning officer, Professor Adeola Afuakpe, said the action became necessary in line with the provision of the nation's electoral guideline, which states that if the number of cancelled votes is higher than the margin between the first two contending political parties, then a winner cannot be declared. Meanwhile, Nigeria's electoral body has announced Thursday, September 27th, as the date for the supplementary election. The election will hold in 4 local government where INEC the cancelled result of some polling units. The local government are Orulu Local Government Area 2 unit, Ife South Local Government Area 1 unit, Ife North Local Government Area 1 unit, or Osogbo Local Government Area 1 unit. There is a difference of 353 votes between PDP and APC, with 3,498 votes expected from the 4 polling units where the rerun will be held. The rerun will be among all 48 political parties that participated in the election. Meanwhile, the Police Service Commission has rated the conduct of the police officers on election duty in Osun governorship election as largely satisfactory. In a statement, the Commission says it's monitored police officers in 30 local government areas of the state, noting that outside few isolated incidents, the conduct of the officers was impressive. The Commission said there was an average of 4 police officers per polling unit, complemented by other paramilitary officers. In a reaction, the People's Democratic Party says it rejects the INEC's declaration of the September 22nd Osun governorship election as inconclusive. The PDP National Publicity Secretary, Kola Ologbondiyan, while briefing the media at the party's national secretariat in Abuja, insists that the process was conclusive and that its candidate, Senator Ademola Adeleke, is in clear lead and should be immediately declared winner by INEC, having met the requirement of the 1999 Constitution as amended. Says the PDP is for peace and will use every force available in democracy to challenge the outcome of the election. And away from that, the Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, Dr. Mekai Tubero, has urged oil workers under the auspices of the National Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, and the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASN, to hold their planned industrial action over labor disputes involving the management of Chevron Nigeria Limited, a multinational oil company operating in Nigeria, and its staff. NNPC Group General Manager, Group Public Affairs Division, Undu Ugwamadu, in a release in Abuja, said the corporation, GMD, had directed its management to work with other stakeholders to resolve the issue being raised by the leadership of the oil industry unions. The unions had recently called on the National Assembly, the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources, the NNPC, the Resources, the NNPC, the Department of State Service, DSS, to intercede in a brewing impasse between Chevron Nigeria Limited and its staff in Nigeria over the company's disclosure that a contract with all manpower service providers will expire by the end of October 2018. And that's the news highlight for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Karen Aroda after this break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem frontally through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Reorganized, trained, and fully equipped, we are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime, we bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
Every new day deserves a great taste for a great start with Nescafe 3-in-1. It all starts with a Nescafe.
Win a trip to Dubai in the 2018 3 Crowns Mom of the Year promo. Visit www.femininelounge.com/competition to find out more.
3 Crowns Milk. Healthy moms, happy families.
Eshima. Mama. Amaka, your food.
Yes, sure. Thank you, ma.
Amaka, ṣé wọ́n ni? Soap, orí, shea butter.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Well, when I was growing up, it wasn't an easy thing for us because my parents were struggling. That's why when I started playing basketball, I need to play, I need to struggle, I need to achieve. I want to make something out of it. I graduated from the Milo Secondary School games to the senior league. Then they called me that I should come and play junior World Cup qualifiers. Following year, I was invited to the senior national team. I've been awarded as the most valuable player 5 times. My teammates, they made it possible. Basketball, they gave me the opportunity to have my own basketball camp, giving back to the society. Because you know what you've passed through. I need to show the kids that basketball really changed my life. My name is Nkechi, and this is our journey.
Nestle, good food, good life. To the outer framers, the hat tippers, the fringe growers, you don't need to hide anymore. Try Dettol Even Tone. It cleans and helps to reduce the appearance of blemishes caused by oil, dirt, and germs, giving your skin a healthy feel for an even better you. Dettol, be 100% sure.
Dettol soap is now also available for 100 Naira only.
Well, in case you just tuned in, this is Good Morning Nigeria on NTA Network Service. Now, let's go to business. Nigeria records $45.7 billion investment in the first 6 months of 2018 as financial analysts react to CBN action on defunct Skybank. Details on business news with Joy Osun.
Welcome to Business News. And as Nigerians continue to react revocation of the Skybank operating license, financial expert and economic analyst Chijioke Ikechukwu has described the action of the Central Bank of Nigeria as appropriate in the best interest of depositors. He said the banking sector is one of the best regulated sectors in Nigeria and the world. The financial expert urged customers not to entertain any form of fear or panic as a result of the development. He said the Apex Bank must have weighed the options and settled for that which will ensure financial interests of customers are protected. On the fate of employees, Mr. Ikechukwu recalled the promise of the CBN and AMCON that the staff remain based on their performance ratings, which he said is enough reason to calm customers.
But of course, from what they said, customers are not supposed to panic because they're not going to lose their money. The new owners are going to take over and make sure that so they can go ahead and deposit and they can go ahead and withdraw as the case may. Just do their normal business. All that change is just the name. There's no threat to their money, and so I don't think it's any problem. Yes, AMCON has already told Nigerians staff will not lose their jobs, and I'm sure they are going to do everything within their powers to make sure that staff don't lose their job.
Moving on now, the Nigerian economy recorded a total investment commitment of $45.7 billion in various sectors of the economy within the first 6 months of this year. Figures obtained from the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission showed that the $45.74 billion investment commitments were channeled to 42 projects in 9 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Analysis of the investments showed that mining accounted for 61% of the value, manufacturing 28%, transportation and storage 5%, real estate 3%, and the remaining sectors accounted for 3%.
Into the equities market, a total turnover of 1.370 billion shares worth 19.503 billion naira in 16,076 deals were traded last week by investors on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. The NSE All-Share Index and market capitalization appreciated by 0.66% to close the week at 32,540.17 and 11.880 trillion naira. And that's as much we can take for now. We'll promise to keep you abreast with closing figures from the exchange as it resumes trading today. Many thanks for watching. I am Joy Uzo.
All right, thank you very much, Joy Uzo, for the business news update. It's time now for us to review newspaper headlines.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebe, is already here with us in the studio. Bayo, good morning and welcome to the Monday's edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, Gary, and good morning. I saw your beaded right hand. I didn't see your red cap. Good morning, Rhoda. Good morning, Nigeria.
Kieran's chieftaincy title is still in contention.
No, it's not in contention.
It's still in contention.
See, Rhoda, be sure the kind of statements you make, because red cap is for occasions. It's not for television.
All right, Bayo, good morning, Bayo. It's good to see you this morning.
Good to see you too.
All right. Brother, we have 4 national dailies here, and about 3 of them, the Osun election actually appears to be the trending headlines. Yes, I have the New Telegraph here. The New Telegraph says Osun shocks APC. Arebosola. Then with riders, I have some riders here. He said about 6 of them. INEC declares global poll inconclusive. Others rerun in 5 POS. PDP to INEC declare Adeleke winner. APC begs voters. 3,498 voters to determine Adeleke Oyetola's fate on Thursday. How the battle was fought by PDP, APC, SDP, others. And then Saraki Secondus, Atiku kick. Electoral officer escapes lynching. That's from the New Telegraph.
All right, it's the same story, just as you said, that's trending on the Nigerian pilot. It's the lead story for all the dailies this morning. Okay, I'll take the Nigerian pilot, the main headline. It says, suspense with riders there. Says, as INEC declares Osun Guber elections inconclusive, fixes September 27 for rerun between APC, PDP candidates. Drama as man confesses plans to change resortship. PDP rejects INEC's verdict and Atiku West Dahosa kicks. APC hails INEC. Buhari and Buhari for H-free polls. That's the lead story there. And okay, before we go now to other stories, let me also take the lead story on The Guardian. It's the same story. Declare Adeleke Osun polls winner, PDP tells INEC. Says INEC election not inconclusive. Aregbesola blames opposition. Rerun holds Thursday in 7 units.
Yes, all right. The Daily Trust also captured the Osun election. It simply put it this way. Osun election rerun holds Thursday. Right. Bayo.
Well, the elections is inconclusive. This is because the returning officer, Professor Adeola Afuagbe, said that the PDP candidate Adeleke scored 254,698 votes, while the APC candidate scored 254,346. The difference is 353. Now, the electoral returning officer said, according to election guidelines, where the emerging winner between the margin of win between the 2 lead candidates, which in this case was 355, is not in excess of the total number of registered voters of the polling unit, where elections were cancelled, as many as 3,498 votes were cancelled. The candidate or party may not be returned. This is the ground on which he said that he has no option but to return the election as inconclusive. Apparently, he was relying on a section of the Electoral Act, which he said was the electoral guideline. However, the INEC has already announced Thursday as the date for the supplementary election. 48 parties, you remember, contested. The PDP scored the highest number of votes in 12 local governments, while the APC scored 353 votes less, but won in 15 local government areas. The wider votes were in, the voided votes were in 7 polling units in 4 local governments, and they cover Ife South, Ife North, Orolu, and Oshogu, and these are the places where the supplementary election will hold. But the PDP is arguing that the declaration of the election as inconclusive violates the section 179, subsection 2A and B of the National Constitution. And that section says, where 2 or more candidates contested election, the winner should be a candidate with the highest number of votes, and B has to have not less than a quarter of the votes in each of the 2/3 of the local government areas of the state. So the contention now between the electoral guideline or electoral act and also a cited section of the Constitution.
Well,
but meanwhile, they have not gone to courts, but the position by INEC is that the supplementary election is fit for Thursday.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, all observers and participants hailed the election as a massive turnout, very peaceful, and commended the people of Osun State for giving Nigeria one of the best elections it has ever had in recent times.
Yeah, and there's some analysts also, arguing, that yes, the INEC has to comply with the Constitution, which is of course the supreme law guiding the country, but they have to exhaust their mandates. They empowered also by the Constitution before they can now move ahead. So, well, let's see how it pans out, in the coming days.
It's politics in the play, and it's good for our political and electoral development.
Yeah. And funny enough, yesterday, very early hours of yesterday, we saw something that Nigerians are used to doing. That's declaring, results on their own, especially on social media. But thank God that a lot of INEC was able to come out early to counter that, because we already saw people announcing results online.
That is the danger involved in announcing a result. Particularly, it's very rampant on the social media. But there was one thing that most of us overlook. The election in Nigeria is very transparent. At the end of the election, in every polling booth, the results are pasted there, so it's already there in the public domain. Yeah. Okay. All anybody needs to do is to sit down and tally up the result from all the 337 polling units it was, and then you have the election result. However, you have to wait for the official proclamation of that election results.
Okay, now let's move on. Let's return to the New Telegraph now and take other stories there. Above the nameplate, let's begin from there, because there's a very interesting story here. Billionaire tax debtors pay 12.6 billion naira. That's according to Federal Inland Revenue Service. That's a very good one there, when billionaires are beginning to pay taxes. Okay, now below the nameplate, we have some stories there. Pension arrears, federal government to raise 800 billion via a promissory note. It's on page 3. And then unpaid rent, landlords give quick notice to undo judiciary. Is on page 32. 3 months after Raskimeno's wife died. Well, 3 months after Raskimeno's death, his wife died. Oh, that's a very sad one. Yeah, very sad one. It's on page 9. Then Kwankwaso picks son-in-law for Kano PDP global ticket. It's on page 35. Then on the foot of the New Telegraph, we have National Assembly shifts resumption to October 9. That's on page 3. That's where you have the full details of that, Rhoda.
All right. On the new, I'd like to take a story from the picture story that's on the pilot, on the Nigerian pilot, and of course it's on the Guardian also too. It's the picture of the President Muhammadu Buhari, departing for New York to attend the UN General Assembly. That's something that is trending, and the high point of that visit, for that visit for the President, would be to address the General Assembly on the day of the general debate, especially concerning Nigeria's commitment towards global peace.
Yes, the President, I think, is listed as number 20 among the world leaders that will address the General Assembly. Yeah. And one of the key issues is that now there is concern about the composition of the permanent members of the Security Council. And Africa is jostling for at least 2 positions, because if you consider the world over, there are about 57 countries in Africa. And that is quite substantial when you compare it worldwide. And so the dominance of the security, permanent members of the Security Council has come under contention, and Nigeria is making a strong case for that. And it's also an opportunity to interface with several world leaders, and also business opportunities for Nigeria with other world-class leaders, which the president is very good at taking advantage of whenever he goes to such visits the UN. The other story is the sad one. What love has put together, let no love put asunder for too long. The wife of Ras Kimono, who was buried just about a month ago, also gave up the ghost early yesterday morning. The wife, Efemena Oke, died yesterday. There's no reason, but if you recall, it was in June that Ras Kimono, while on his way to United States, slumped and was rushed to hospital, but he didn't survive. The wife, now the husband and wife are now probably united in death. Meanwhile, over the weekend, there was success story. Nigerian-born British boxer Anthony Joshua scored a 7-round technical knockout over Alexander Polevekin. And this is his 22nd win, 21 of them by technical knockout. And he's a knockout specialist. He's now unified all the 5 world titles: World Boxing Association, International Boxing Federation, World Boxing Organization, International Boxing Organization belts.
And Eyimba qualified yesterday for the semi-finals.
Yes, for the
the
elephant.
Yeah, I was so happy for them, man. I'm proud of them.
In fact, I developed interest in Joshua. When he removed the Klitschko, because before then nobody
was
dared
knocking everybody
to go near close to Klitschko. But the way he handled him, and after that, the man retired from boxing.
And Joshua is just 28.
He's 28, just a young man. Okay, now let's go to the editorial for today. Editorial for today is NFF election and the future of football in Nigeria. Is actually from the Sun newspaper. Now, the just concluded elections into the board of the Nigeria Football Federation, NFF, which held on Thursday in Katsina, must mean a lot for the present and future Nigerian football. At the end of the highly anticipated election, Amaju Pinnick, incumbent president of the NFF, got the mandate to continue in office for another 4 years. He beat his closest rival, former president Aminu Megari, by 34 to 8 votes. Taiwo Gunjabi, a former secretary general of the Football Association, scored 2 votes, while Chinedu Okoye, the 4th contestant for the office, got no votes. Without wasting time, let's look at the NFF. For the first time that we're having an NFF president coming back a second time. It never happened before.
And then does that put an end to the controversies that have been trailing the NFF?
Yes, that has put an end to the controversy that started August 26, some 4 years ago. That has ended it. But the editorial is expressing concern that the Nigerian Football Federation is not recognized by law as an entity on its own, but rather it is an agency under the Federal Ministry of Sports. And the editorial is highlighting the fact that football particularly, the world over, is a big business. And therefore, the earlier that Nigeria Football Federation is taken out of the Ministry of Sports and to live on its own, the better. But don't forget that football is one of the several sports under the umbrella, the supervision of the Federal, the Ministry of Youth and Sports. If football is pulled out, that will have to come from the law which is before the National Assembly. And you know, up till now, there has been argument about Nigeria Football Association or Nigeria Football Federation based on the law that is being contemplated. So that is the essence, the objection, the point of view of the editorial.
Okay, but what is also guiding us, is also FIFA regulations too, should also play in here, because anything we do without recognizing FIFA's regulations, we're going to have a problem. But at this point, Bayo, we will have to end this conversation on the newspaper review. And I want to thank you immensely for being part of the show as usual.
Thank you.
We're ready to return again tomorrow when we bring another edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you, Bayo, and goodbye for now. Well, the program continues in just a moment. Don't go away.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There's no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the daring and invincible Louis the Mosquito. Responsible for 200 malaria cases all on its own. Is there anything that can kill Louis? Morphine! Presenting Morphine Power Guard. Its powerful formula kills malaria mosquitoes fast. So, get Morphine Power Guard.
Kehinde suffers from indigestion. His twin Taiyi suffers from heartburn. Sometimes it's the other way around, or both. That's why they use Gaviscon Double Action. It soothes within 3 minutes and lasts for up to 4 hours. For double relief from heartburn and indigestion, Gaviscon Double Action.
Fake news which is shared for malicious purposes is a danger to our peace and security in Nigeria. Misinformation as fake news is a serious threat to our hard-earned democracy and promotes hatred and misunderstanding between our communities. We are all responsible for stopping the spread of fake news in its tracks. So, always check the source and credibility of any news item. Say no to fake news. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
For years, the NTA has been promoting science, technology, arts and crafts under the tagged name National Children's Expo. We are set with another edition as we gather children around Nigeria, junior category ages 6 to 12 and senior category ages 13 to 18. The theme for Expo 2018, achieving self-sufficiency in agriculture, meeting the challenges of security and exposition of alternative energy as pathways to national development. Date, October 21st to 25th, 2018. Venue, NTA Headquarters Arena, Area 11, Garki, Abuja. We are set to celebrate the best of innovation across the country. For more information, please call the following numbers. NTA ETV, promoting learning.
Madam. Brought us as usual.
As usual. You have no problem.
For the three put.
You are welcome, sir.
As usual, yeah? I was.
You take that one. You take that one. You don't understand? We want Nigerian homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have. You don't have.
Join the rice revolution today.
No other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice. Are you sorry? That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about. Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food. I'm going to bring Mrs. Mobu to come to chocolate rice of made in Nigeria here. And see how it are made.
Correct.
How they are cook it.
Correct.
Homegrown rice are good for your health. It boosts our economy and give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're welcome back, and if you've just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria. Now, as the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly is underway in New York, our foreign desk correspondent, Makut Simon Macham, is standing by to give us, bring us up to speed with developments over there as President Muhammadu Buhari and his wife, Aisha are already in New York to participate in the deliberations. Makut, it's good to see you. Good morning. How is New York this morning? And if you would, give us a sense of what this 73rd General Assembly is all about as regards the delegates, and what events have been lined up for this assembly.
Good morning, Rhoda. Thank you very much. New York is fine and really playing host to the world as it is. As you're aware, the theme for this year's UN General Assembly is making the United Nations more relevant to all peoples and societies. That is to provide global leadership and, of course, for its responsibilities for peace and sustainable development. Now, so far, there is the presence of delegates from virtually all over the world, and of course, there are a series of activities lined up from the ones that are related to the general theme of this summit to the ones that are particular to issues that have been ongoing regarding the theme, and then some issues that have continued to receive attention over the years. For Nigeria, as you are aware already, the president is here and he's leading the Nigerian delegation. But suffice to say that already various countries are strategizing on issues that relate to them, which are part of the theme and indeed things that they wish to bring up here. So as the general debate of the heads of states begin, we'll be hearing what each country is bringing to the table, what are the concerns for each country. And at the end of the day, the UN, through its theme, wants to ensure that, of course, everything that is being discussed is linked to improving humanity. And so you can say the world is ready, and then everyone is here waiting to provide its position. So New York is quite busy, and delegates are all here, so to say.
All right, Makut, thank you so much. And let me ask you this, what do we know about Nigeria's agenda for the General Assembly? That is to say, what are we bringing to the table?
Well, thank you, Kieran. Nigeria is bringing so much to the table. Like I said earlier, it is about what concerns you. And as you know, the president has specific agenda for Nigeria's development right from when he came into office. Don't forget his first appearance at the UN in 2015 was where he presented to the world what issues Nigeria is facing and how the world can join Nigeria to deal with those issues. Security, economic development, and the fight against corruption, have continued to be on the front burner. So you can expect that those things will resonate because as the president is the champion for the African Union fight against corruption, he'll also be bringing a larger picture now to discuss the issue, if you like, on behalf of Africa, to say that this is what we have zeroed in, and we need to fight corruption together. That is both from the African perspective and from the global perspective. And as you know, he has always been insisting that there is so much that has been taken out of Africa. And indeed, this money should be returned by countries that seem to be reluctant in returning them. So a lot is going to be heard on that issue. And then secondly, the issue of economic development. When you talk of trade, how much does the world work for equitable trade? And so the president will also be raising that, because some of the actions that happen, particularly by economic giants, affect negatively the developing countries like Nigeria. So the president will be bringing that. But much more important is the issue of global peace. And analysts have already said that without local peace, global peace is a mirage. So for Nigeria, if you remember, the president had to engage even the Nigeria's neighbors in the fight against Boko Haram and the fight against terrorism. So the progress report of what has been achieved by Nigeria and its neighbors, and indeed Africa, West Africa, and so on, will be highlighted by Nigeria. But then there are other issues like climate change. If you recall, the issue of flooding that Nigeria is battling to cope with right now is part of the wider issues of climate change. And of course, the SDGs, attaining the goals. What does the world need to do? And then what does a country like Nigeria need to do in its own track? So Nigeria will be talking about so much. And that is not to say that it's only the president that will be attending this event, because there are a series of events lined up. So it's the president that will be attending, plus the delegation that is here. Some will be attended by ministers, some by specific heads of MDAs that are also here, and then the mission officials. So Nigeria has so much at this summit that is already on the way.
All right, thank you, Makud. And for the last question, we'd like to put to you, because of course you have given us a retinue of what we'll be expecting within this period of the UN activities. Now, what do you know also about talks that may take place on the sideline? Of course, the wife's president, Aisha, is there. There are ministers and other government functionaries there. We expect to have some conversations on the sideline of the event.
Very well, Kirian. There are series of events lined up, particularly for the First Lady. She will be talking with her colleagues on health issues, HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and the Minister of Health is also here. So they'll be engaged in that, particularly issues regarding funding. Some of these critical health challenges need financing. And so they'll be looking at how to raise funds from donors and then the international community. So a lot of that is happening. But just to mention also that civil societies are also here, and there are some Nigerian civil society organizations. We met some of their leaders who are here also to engage with their counterparts, and indeed to engage the UN as it is, to ensure that the issues that are being raised here are scrutinized and are being really panel beaten, if you like, from all sides. So the issues of youth development, women issues will all be raised at various levels. So quite a busy time for delegates that are here already to ensure that these issues are raised.
Thank you very, very much. Of course, the high point of this is not just that the president is attending, but he will be addressing the assembly tomorrow, which is Tuesday. Of course, we will be getting back to you in the course of his visit or his stay at the UN General Assembly, of course, to get more details as events unfold. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. We'll get back to you much later in the course of the day. Thank you, Makut.
Thank you very much, Rhoda.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. Our first issue for discuss this morning is on the presidential initiative on the Northeast. And this background report has been put together by Oyeyemi Ajayi. And of course, that will lay the foundation for our discussion this morning. We already have our guest in the studio. So let's take a quick look at this background report.
With the decimation of the Boko Haram insurgents, particularly in the northeastern part of the country, the next phase is how to resettle the people affected by the insurgency. Available statistics shows that more than 4 million people were displaced and about 300,000 homes totally destroyed, while more than 2 million people were made homeless. However, as part of efforts to bring succor to the people in the region, with a view of making them return to their normal lives. Well-meaning Nigerians and international organizations, both private and public, continue to provide humanitarian aids to the people in the Northeast, but most of the materials were not delivered to the people in need, perhaps due to lack of proper coordination in the aid delivery system. To this end, in 2016, President Muhammadu Buhari inaugurated the Presidential Committee on Northeast Initiative, PCNI, under the chairmanship of the retired General Theophilus Danjuma. The committee, which was saddled with the responsibility to coordinate and reconstruct Boko Haram damaged Northeast, was the apex coordinating body for all interventions in the region, including those by the private, public, national, and international development partners. As it is being funded through federal, state, and local government appropriation, as well as funds from the private sector and the international development partners, the committee was domiciled in the presidency and charged with the responsibility for developing the strategy and implementation framework for rebuilding the Northeast region. Since its establishment, PCNI has been engaged in a series of activities and interventions in the Northeast, such as provision of health and food security in Borno, Yobe, Adamawa, and Taraba states. In addition, the committee is assisting in the resettlement of the displaced persons in their ancestral homes following the return of peace, among others. So now that the committee is 2 years, how far has it gone with its assignments? What are the challenges to realizing its targets? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will provide answer to these questions shortly.
And here in the studio to, of course, throw more light on this topic is Dr. Sidi Ali Mohammed, Head of Humanitarian Resettlement and Rehabilitation, PCNI. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kieran, for having me.
And also with us this morning is Abdul Al-Qasim Abdul Kadri, the Head of Media and Communications. Abdul Kadri, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
And from Maiduguri Network Center, we have also joining us for this conversation, Dr. Bulama Ali Gubio, Secretary Brunu Elders Forum. Good morning, sir. Good to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, gentlemen, let's begin our discussion this way. Before we begin to look at how far this committee has fared in the last 2 years, for the better understanding for our viewers, would like to get at least an understanding of what your mandate is actually, and then we'll begin to look at how far you have been able to discharge your duties. So let's begin with you. What is the mandate of the Presidential Initiative on the Northeast?
Okay, a bit of a background to the organization.
Yeah.
As at the time that President Muhammadu Buhari came into government, came into power, there were a plethora of organizations. You had the Safe Schools Initiative, which was under the Ministry of Finance at that time. You also had the Presidential Initiative on the Northeast, known as PINE. You also had the Presidential Committee on the Victims Support Fund. So in a way, there was a plethora of organizations doing similar things. The president, in his wisdom, decided to bring them under one umbrella so that there should be a greater focus on discharging their duties. And as such, the PCNI became sort of an umbrella body for humanitarian intervention in the Northeast. As such, it is a coordination organization. It coordinates humanitarian activities in the Northeast. And most importantly, where there are gaps, it comes in to fill them. This is exactly the mandate of the organization.
Okay, just to coordinate, as you put it, a plethora of organizations who are trying to serve the same purpose. All right, let's turn to Dr. Sidi Ali Mohammed. Would you like to add to what he has said? Is there any other aspect of the mandate of this organization that you would like us to know?
Thank you very much. Like my colleague has earlier highlighted, the main focus, for the PCNI, of course, like he has said, is the apex coordinating body for all interventions, in the Northeast. Again, we also have the mandate, to rebuild, not only to rebuild the Northeast, but to rebuild it back better. This is what I will add to what he has said. And in discharging that duty, of course, we're able to bring all the actors who are currently playing in the Northeast under one umbrella,
through what we call the monthly coordination forum, where we bring everybody around the table and then we exchange ideas and listen to them. And then where there are gaps, then the PCNI comes into filling the gaps, like he has said. Yeah.
All right, so let's go to Borno, Maiduguri, where we have Dr. Bulama Mali Gubio. Doc, you're in the center of the northeast. Borno State is one of the states that was worst hit by insurgency. So far, how has this committee fared in terms of discharging its duties?
Thank you very much. Apart from being at the center of the insurgency, I am also the chairman of the Borno State Humanitarian Response Committee, as well as the chairman of the Red Cross Society of Nigeria in Borno State. I have been working very closely with the PCNI. I am also a member of the Victim Support Fund. So I know much about the activities for the PCNI. Since its inception, the PCNI has basically relocated to Maiduguri. The vice chairman of the PCNI is virtually living in Maiduguri with his group. They have a very functional office. We have been coordinating together. They have been reaching out to all the humanitarian agencies, including the United Nations-based organizations, the international NGOs, and also the national, as well as civil society organizations. They have really impacted not only on the displaced persons, but also on the activities of the humanitarian actors. Hitherto, OCHA, that is the United Nations Office of the Humanitarian Organizations Coordinator, was operating independently. The INGOs were operating independently, and the national NGOs were also operating independently. But now, there is cohesion, there is coordination, there is collaboration. As earlier said by Al-Qasim, they share responsibility where there is gap, as he said. Particular NGOs which are interested in that area will be called in to take over the functions. And as far as welfare is concerned, the displaced persons are comfortable. The only place where all of us are maybe lacking, I can say, is the resettlement of the people. That is by structures, actual resettlement of the people is far from being achieved. But all displaced persons who we can reach are very, very comfortable. They are fed, they are accommodated, and some of them are even given cash transfers for them to pick up their lives. When you go through the streets of Maiduguri and other towns, you will find that there are so many trading activities going on conducted by displaced persons. They are picking up their lives gradually, and the PCNI is living up to its expectations as far as the Humanitarian Response Committee is concerned.
Thank you indeed. We'll be returning to you in a short while for further analysis. But now we're back to Abuja here, and let me ask Al-Qasim Abdul Kadri, the head of communications, to tell us about the framework put together for this committee to forge ahead, considering of what the enormity of the responsibility of the committee, which will be dealing or has been dealing with thousands, if not millions of people. We're talking about humanitarian and other aspects of the assignment given to them. So what has been the framework that you put in place to enable you achieve your set objectives?
First of all, the agency derives its legitimacy from the presidency via an executive order to operate. So that is the overall framework of the organization. However, in terms of specific mandates, the framework varies. So for example, in terms of healthcare, what we have decided to do is to bring emergency healthcare to the people because it's impossible for them to access hospitals. So what we have is that we have designed healthcare outreach programs in collaborations with organizations like ProHealth, which is an outreach medical organization, organizations like Megoje, and also the Yakubu Gawon Center to fight disease like hepatitis B in the region. So in the terms of healthcare, we try to take healthcare to the people to meet their immediate healthcare needs. In terms of security, we work closely with the military because international conventions say you cannot take people from safety to harm. So we try as much as possible to follow the framework of the Nigerian security agencies. And in returning people, we follow their instructions, and where there is safety, we take people back to those communities. On that education again, we have teamed up with states, educational ministries to retrain teachers. So far, we have retrained thousands of teachers in order to ensure that their psychosocial state is proper for them to be able to return to their schools. In terms of providing textbooks, educational materials, we are targeting this year almost 70,000 pupils and students in the Northeast, and also targeting about 7,000 teachers in terms of providing them with the needed facilities and assessments for them to be able to go back to school. So our framework varies from sector to sector. Talking about peace building, we have also come up with a framework of transitional justice. The combatants need to go back to their communities, but there has to be peace and harmony in the communities. The communities must be ready to accept them back. We are having focal group discussions to ensure that this, when it happens, is seamless. So there are various frameworks based on the various sectors that we are working in at the moment.
All right, thank you very much, Al-Kasim Abdul Qadri. Now let's go to Dr. Sidi Ali Mohammed. You are the head of Humanitarian Assistance, Resettlement and Rehabilitation. I'd like you to take you up on the comment that Dr. Mali Gubio earlier said in his opening comments. He said in terms of, people being in the camps, having food, welfare being taken care of, that has been awesome. But then the issue of resettlement is where there are challenges. Could you speak to us on that?
Thank you very much. On the issue of resettlement, like Al-Kasim has mentioned earlier, in most cases, the military has to give you clearance, or the military will have to say that a particular area is safe for people to return. In the past, we have seen situations where people have returned, and again, they have to be displaced because of security issues. And we have also seen situations where it's a town like Bama, for example. Currently, you have people being taken back to Bama, or people have moved back to Bama. But you realize that within 1-2 kilometer radius of Bama town, it's not safe. People can't even go to farm. So we still have a lot of issues around resettlement. For us to be able to resettle people, like I said, the military definitely has to give us a clearance to say, yes, this place is safe. Then you can now begin to bring back people into those.
Are there any areas that the military has given clearance so
yes,
far?
there are areas where military have given clearance, and then people on their own, the resilient communities, some people have been able to go back to their own communities. Such people, we have assisted the Borno State government with a lot of non-food items, such as zinc, wood, and all that to help these people, resettle back in their communities. And as we speak, we have a lot of people who are in Cameroon, about 91,000 of them, who are also waiting to be, but you can't bring people back when the area is not safe. So these are the issues around resettlement. First, you have to get clearance to say this place is safe, and then before you can move into. So the major challenge, is still, around issues of security. But otherwise, resettling these people, PCNI is very ready. We have procured large quantities of the non-food, shelter materials, like I mentioned, and willing and ready to get them back to their communities.
Okay, so there are still a little bit of security issues in some communities. Well, let's get back to Dr. Bulama Mali Gubio. So I recall that sometime last week we had a program here where you also featured, and you made us to understand that a lot has actually gone in ensuring that Borno State is safe. Well, therefore, you have a direct link with the elders and, of course, the ordinary people. Now, Dr. Sidi Ali had just mentioned the fact that they're having a lot of issues with security in terms of resettlement. Well, in your opinion, how would you score the PCNI with respect to rehabilitation or resettlement, as the case may be? What are your experiences over there?
Thank you very much. The PCNI are very much on ground. They are ready to penetrate the rural areas, the villages. They are ready to go to the people in their domains. Unfortunately, there is something lacking in the theater of operation. The soldiers are all over the place. They are doing their best. One, they are defending the people. Two, they are defending their own formations, which are being attacked by remnants of Boko Haram every now and then. The police are keeping internal security. There are lots of criminality nowadays apart from Boko Haram. The civil defense, all the forces are working very hard, but what may be lacking is security check reports, security reports from the rural areas. As I mentioned in the other program, credible local information is often neglected. Sometimes it comes late. If there is movement, for example, today is Monday, and a villager wants to report that movement before he reaches Maiduguri, it may be Wednesday or Thursday, and then the attack would have taken place. One would have loved where the state security services would be empowered, seriously empowered, to penetrate the rural areas and give accurate report to the security forces, to the army, to the police, to the civil defense, and even to the civilian JTF. Everyone involved in this fight are doing their best, but unfortunately, they could not fish out the remnants of the Boko Haram, which are not many. In most cases, when there is an attack, you find that 7 Boko Haram members came, 10 came, 12. They are not used to be as they were before, when they used to come in their hundreds and thousands. Today, I think there is no formation, any formation attacked by more than 50 Boko Haram members. But then the rural people always give a report of the movement of these people, despite the fact that their lives are threatened. But unfortunately, such reports reach the concerned authorities late when damage would have been done. So for the PCNI, even if they want to reach the areas which are supposed to be reached, they cannot, because some of these areas, even military convoys could hardly go, because you can find that in the middle of nowhere, just some few 5 to 10 Boko Haram members would deliberately, even if they know they are going to die, they attack the convoy of the military. In most cases, they daringly attack military formations which are stationed in the rural areas. Therefore, for the PCNI to reach those places, they need very serious security cover. And security cover means soldiers who are seriously armed and who can protect them on their way to those rural areas. For example, from Maiduguri to Baga, it's nearly 300 kilometers. And you will be traveling in the bush where you can see no settlement at all. Most of the settlements have been destroyed. When you begin to move from Maiduguri to Baga, the only place you can see people next is Gajigana. Then after about 30, 40 kilometers, Gajiram. After about 40 kilometers, you see Monguno. So you can see that soldiers are moving in the middle of nowhere, in the bush, without any security report, without any surveillance. They move, and when you are moving in a vehicle, you know how you move. Somebody who is waiting for you on the top of trees, somebody who is waiting for you in the ditches, will just give you a surprise attack. So to protect the lives of officials, to protect the lives of humanitarian service providers, we need to improve on the security situation. Our soldiers themselves need protection, because in some of these formations you find 100 soldiers, 50 soldiers. The biggest group of soldiers you'll find is 750. And these 750s are to cover a very large area of land, maybe 200,000 square kilometers for 750 soldiers. And that makes it very difficult for them. They are divided into groups. There are those who will provide the feeding. There are those who will provide surveillance. There are those who will provide all these things. put together in the bush, and then suddenly you find, nowadays what we hear is that those who are attacking the military formations are in military uniform.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Mali Gubio there. You're highlighting some of the challenges you're having there in the Northeast. I'm sure that, of course, the appropriate authorities are also listening to this, and all of that will be addressed. But then let's get back to Al-Qasim Abdul Qadri. Now, I'm aware that there's a plan that you have put together, and it's called the Buhari Plan. I'd like you to give us more information on what the plan is all about. Have you started to implement it? Is it something you have already started running? If it isn't, or if it is, tell us how far you have gone. If it isn't, tell us what it's all about and how you intend to implement it.
The Buhari plan is a blueprint,
okay,
and the document came about from assessments of major partners like the NEMA, like state governments, and the RPBA of the World Bank and UN agencies. These are assessments that they have done of destroyed communities, of vocations and occupations that have been lost, of what it takes to rebuild the Northeast in terms of even monetary and financial terms. So this plan was all coalesced together to come up with the Buhari plan. So far, the work of major organizations are based on the Buhari plan. So the work of PCNI in terms of how to take care of the environment, in terms of how to respond to housing and shelter care, in terms of how to provide educational and health needs are all based on what the Buhari plan says. Even the international donor organizations are also falling in line with implementing the Buhari plan because it is also based on their assessments. Other organizations like the Victim Support Fund are also implementing their programs on an annual basis based on what the Buhari plan says. So at the moment, I will say that we're focused on implementing the Buhari plans, and we are going through it on a page-by-page basis of implementing the plan.
How long is this plan?
The plan is meant to, it's divided into short and medium and long-term basis. So I'll say that the short term is 5 years. Out of this 5 years, we have gone about 3 years already. Okay. And the medium plan is about 10 years, while the long-term plan is about 25 years in terms of rebuilding the entire region of the Northeast.
Okay, well, that's it sounds good, brother. You know, it's a good plan. Since it has a short-term, medium-term, and long-term, so that also indicates that, that there is room for sustainability along the line.
You know, we've always said that with the extent of damage that has been done there, you know, some people think it's just something that would be done in 2, 3, 4 years.
It's not. We're talking about thousands
millions of people,
not millions of people, yes, then thousands of homes too. All right. In your initial comment, Dr. Sidi Ali, you mentioned that PCNI is an umbrella body coordinating other organizations, for the same purpose, right? What I want to ask here is what level of or what kind of collaboration that is existing, because those organizations are still in existence, though controlled by you, as the case may be. Now, are there specific assignments, given to those organizations working with PCNI?
Thank you very much. Let me quickly mention that most of the organizations that are currently, playing in the Northeast are kind of specific. Some are into health, some deal with education, some deal with, infrastructure and all that. We have what we call the sector working groups, where, for example, we have the health sector working group. So anybody who is working under health, goes under that umbrella. Okay. They have a forum where they meet, and then we know who is where and doing what and when. So that way, if there are gaps, PCNI will be able to come in and fill in those gaps. This allows us to avoid duplication, in the midst of scarce resources. So if you have there's another one we call the WASH, which has to do with water, sanitation, and hygiene sector. Anybody who is working in that area also is, goes under that sector working group. So we have different, then there is the food. We have the food sector working group, where you have the World Food Program, you have and PCNI is deliberately embedded into all the sector working groups, because this gives us a holistic view of what everybody is doing in the Northeast, and also, like I said, allows us to fill in gaps where gaps have been found to exist. And even in the formation of the committee, the PCI committee, the government deliberately, constituted a committee having in mind organizations like NEMA, organizations like NOA. Everybody, in that committee were brought under one umbrella. People from the relevant MDAs, are all, in that committee. So that in our coordination function, we make sure that we have the relevant, organizations, embedded in the committee. So in the various sector working groups, like I mentioned, we are embedded, and that is the way we know what is happening in the Northeast and where there are gaps, and then we try to fill in those gaps.
All right, tell us something. Are there blind spots, or are there areas that are posing a challenge to your mandate or fulfilling your assignments?
Yes, there are a lot of areas, but just to mention, like I said, coordination is something that is very difficult. While we try all this to be able to coordinate everybody, we still have people who want to work in silos because maybe for various reasons, known to them. Because I always find it very difficult, difficult to understand. When you say you are in the Northeast to help the people of the Northeast, and we say to you, this is an umbrella body, we can all come together, for the same purpose, but some people or some organization, for whatever reason, want to work on their own and claiming maybe the mandate they have. I give you an example of ICRC, for example, and MSF. These are organizations that...
ICRC,
that's the International Red Cross. Yeah. They say to you that the kind of work we do, we can go anywhere, anytime we want. They do not necessarily have to report to you. They don't necessarily have to key into what you do, because their mandate allows them to do whatever they want. For example, they don't even need military cover to go into, to those communities. Whether it is, because the mandate they have allows them to attend to anybody, whether it is Boko Haram or it is ordinary civilian, because that is the humanitarian assignment they do. It doesn't say that you cannot treat your enemy. As far as they are concerned, all humans are the same, and therefore they need those assistance. So this kind of organizations are posing a kind of difficulty for us, in terms of coordination, because they tend to operate in silos outside whatever arrangement you have. Yeah. So this is one of the challenge. Another challenge, again, of course, which is general issue across Nigeria, which everybody is aware, is the issue of resources. I give an example. In a year, for example, PCNI proposed about 100 and something billion, for the resettlement, rebuilding the Northeast. But what we get in the budget is maybe about 45 billion. But again, budgeting does not also equate to release. Okay. So you get 45 billion as budgeted, but maybe at the end of the year, you end up with maybe 10, 15 billion. So funding is still also an issue. Yeah. Okay.
Rhoda, we may have to return to Bulama in Maiduguri. So let's ask you this. That some states actually make up the northeast of Nigeria, meaning that so many communities have been affected during the heat of the insurgency. Now, could you give us an overview of what you believe has been the impact of PCNI in those states and communities? This is in terms of a direct impact on families, individuals, and of course the entire state.
The direct impact of the PCNI, as I said earlier, is taking care of the welfare of the people. The people are no longer hungry. They have all the human needs in terms of feeding, accommodation, Medicare, and even some form of education in the camps. Coming to what Malang Sidi Ali Srajo said, he is too modest in his report about the non-governmental organizations and their behavior. In fact, PCNI cannot claim to effectively coordinate the international organizations, the UN organizations. They are independent and they don't want to collaborate directly with anybody. They can come for a meeting, they can come for collaboration, They will attend to all forms of gatherings, but outside that, they operate independently as they wish. And they will never tell you, for example, we have the Borno State Humanitarian Response Committee. We have lots of guidelines for the organizations, but they blatantly refuse to cooperate with any government set up organization to coordinate their affairs. They have their own coordinating bodies, and even their own coordinating bodies are just there in name, but not to tell you exactly what they are doing. For example, the organizations he met, they are talking about neutrality, the principle of neutrality. That is the Red Cross principle of neutrality. Neutrality is where two countries are fighting a war. Then you can be neutral. If it is a civil war, you can be neutral. If it is communal clash between two communities, you can be neutral. But not when the entire community don't know who is attacking them. They have not offended anybody. They have not opposed Boko Haram. They have not even a stick to fight Boko Haram. They don't know where Boko Haram is. They don't know who is the leader of Boko Haram, and they are being killed. Their communities are destroyed, and you say they are equal partners, and then you become neutral. How can you be neutral between the masses who are dying in the northeast and the Boko Haram who are hiding in the bush, striking and killing them, running back to their hideouts? They are not equal partners. They are not opposing parties. It is a group of criminals killing innocent people. Therefore, for the ICRC or any other organization or Doctors Without Borders to say that Boko Haram and the people are equal partners and they will be neutral, it is misnomer. It is not. That principle of neutrality should be re-examined by the ICRC, by the Doctors Without Borders, and any other organization that is carrying out this neutrality principle should look into this matter seriously again. Because the ordinary person in the villages of Adamawa or Taraba or Yobe or Borno doesn't know why Boko Haram is killing him. He doesn't know why Boko Haram is attacking their community. And he has no say whatsoever. Even if the leader of Boko Haram is sitting in front of him, he doesn't know. So how do they become equal partners? So as I'm saying, this issue of neutrality, this issue of performance of NGOs, it actually is not well coordinated because they don't want any coordination. They don't want to divulge what they are doing. And we know that the money they are spending is not their money. Most of the money they spend comes from the World Bank and some rich countries through the US aid, UK aid, Canadian aid, and others. And they are just like contractors, collecting money from those organizations for the welfare of the people of the Northeast. And if that is the case, the entire community should be involved in what they are doing, particularly the traditional authorities, the elders, the ulama, the people themselves should be involved in what they want and what they don't want. But what they do is they give the people whatever they feel they can give the people. And nobody can ask them questions. What are you doing? If you ask that question, then you will not see them again. You give them all forms to feel that this is their area of operation. We give them areas of operation. I am the coordinator in Borno State, and we have assigned areas of operation to all the NGOs. Some of them, they go beyond the areas of operation on their own volition. And sometimes they cause some minor crisis between themselves and the traditional rulers. There were cases where we had to intervene seriously to settle quarrels between district heads, village heads, and NGOs. Because if NGOs would go to a whole district, erect their tent without the knowledge of the district head, without the knowledge of the village head, and start counting people or registering people, and the traditional authorities have no say. When they talk, they will say, that is not your business. And that should not be the case because Nigerians who are IDPs are not refugees. They are internally displaced persons living under their own authorities. They are living under their president, under their governor, under their local government chairman, under their traditional rulers, under their district. Everything has been like before. The only thing is that they have been displaced from their homes.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Mali Gubiu. Actually, you haven't spoken to the issue that Kirian was actually talking about, and that's the issue of, if you had any data as to families that have been resettled. But obviously, let's see if we have time, we'll get back to you on that. But I would like Dr. Abdulkadri to actually speak to the issue of, more funding in terms of getting more support and synergy from stakeholders. What would you like to see?
The good thing about it is that we're beginning to see a greater cooperation in terms of funding. Okay. So, for example, last week the Islamic Development Bank partnered with us to reach about 10,500 households in the Northeast, in Borno, in Adamawa, and Yobe, with food items. So the idea is that this is an international financial organization partnering with us to be able to reach households. And in reaching these households, you have been able to impact at the minimum 7 people, because this is a number that makes up a household in the Northeast. And what that does is that we are now beginning to get international cooperation. The state governments have been cooperating with us in terms of our activities, and also the UN system and the DFID, the USAIDs, AIDs, and all that. So we're beginning to see a form of cooperation which will begin to mitigate the issues of IDPs in the Northeast.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Sidi Ali, in what might be your final contribution on this conversation should be, you are the head of humanitarian assistance, resettlement, and of course rehabilitation. It's quite huge. Now lead us into what you think had happened, with respect to these 3 key areas, which of course concerns human beings. So what actually can you say has happened in terms of ensuring that these subsectors of what we're doing are actually impacting on the people?
Thank you very much for that question. Let me start with the humanitarian assistance. In any crisis situation, humanitarian assistance is usually the first to come in. And the good news is today, most of the states are no longer needing humanitarian assistance, except, of course, Borno. Borno State still needs humanitarian assistance. And therefore, what we're trying to do now is to begin to move, to connect that nexus between humanitarian assistance and development. For those states that are quiet, we need to begin to see developments happening in those states. And then for Borno, we still have to continue with our humanitarian assistance activity alongside the developmental activities. So in terms of humanitarian activity, I can tell you we have done quite a lot. You can even say more than 80% has been achieved as far as humanitarian assistance is concerned. The second phase, which is the resettlement, which is a bit more, like I said, is unfortunately tied around security. You cannot resettle people when there is insecurity.
Are there areas people are resettled?
Yes, states? In fact, there are areas today where people on their own, willingly, without even government asking them to go back, they have gone back to their own communities, because such communities have been liberated by the army and they are safe. So people have moved in there. And like I mentioned earlier on, PCNI, in collaboration with the Borno State government, for example, is providing them with shelter materials. I mentioned wood, things like zinc, nails, and all that, to facilitate the resettlement of these people. But generally, we have also begun to see, in terms of rebuilding back the infrastructure that has been destroyed, in terms of public infrastructure generally, like schools, hospitals, and all that. We have also, and then police stations and their barracks. PCNI currently is already doing something in that direction. And I think to mention the earlier question you asked Al-Qasim, also to mention that even the Nigerian, we have organizations today in Nigeria, particularly the oil majors, who have today, have come to PCNI, and they're also collaborating with PCNI, and they're ready to put in their monies into the Northeast. We have what we call we have a body now where we are collating all the intervention by the oil majors. Some are willing to renovate hospitals. Some are willing to, build schools, roads, electricity, and all that.
Are some of these structures on ground in some places now?
Now, as we speak, some structures are already, you can go and see, some of these structures are already in place. Like I've mentioned, renovations of police stations, renovations of secretariats of local governments, hospitals and all that. These things are currently ongoing. But like I said, the major challenge or the major function we've been carrying out in the last 2 years or so has majorly been that of humanitarian assistance. But now we realize that there's a need to connect that nexus between the humanitarian and the development. And that is exactly what we're doing now.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Sidi Ali Mohammed, for joining us on the program this morning. Gentlemen, want to say a very big thank you to all of you from the Presidential Initiative on the Northeast for joining us this morning, and of course wish you well as you continue to do the great work of restoring the northern eastern part of Nigeria back to what it used to be. On that note, I want to say a very big thank you first of all to Dr. Bulama Mali Gubio, who joined us from our Maiduguri Network Center. He is the Secretary Borno Elders Forum. Thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you.
Very big thank you to the Head of Media and Communications, his Al-Qasim Abdul Kadri. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And finally, a very big thank you to Dr. Sidi Ali Mohammed, Head of Humanitarian Assistance, Resettlement and Rehabilitation, PCNI. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll be reviewing the Osun State governorship election that just was conducted on Saturday, just 2 days ago, and it ended, it was inconclusive. We'll take a look at it, and of course, the rerun election that will be coming up in just about 3 days from now. So stay with us.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Helen! Your kitchen gets 10 out of 10. Thank you. This also gets a 10. Should we see the toilet now? Sure. This gets just 1. It is clean. But not perfect 10. Better than my detergent and bleach? Impossible. Challenge? Try the new Apic 10X. Compared to bleach and detergent, Apic sticker formulation removes yellow stains times better, giving you a sparkling clean toilet. Wow. Now you also take that Apic 10X challenge.
Also available in 200 ml pack.
Oh boy, climb this thing now. Not be only to connect lights. Come you and yourself now. Now wow. Oh boy, calm down now. Oga Kasali electrician, what would they look for with this? Oh, Oga Kasali, come help us fix this wire now.
Sorry, I no longer carry out illegal connection. It puts the lives of people at risk and can cause fire outbreak and disrupt power supply. I will never be part of anything that has to do with this any longer, because change begins with me.
Oh boy, letting him talk makes sense. Oh boy, we could carry this ladder from off.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
I'm not hearing anything, no.
It's still Good Morning Nigeria. Of course, we're taking now a review of the inconclusive election that's held in Osun State. Well, the election was conducted, but a winner is yet to emerge. But before we start talking to our guests that we have here in the studio, let's just take a listen to the declaration of the results by the returning officer, who is Professor Adiola Fuakbe, on the exercise.
From the analysis of results that we have, difference between the two leading parties is just 353. And the number of voters in units where elections were cancelled is 3,498. To that effect, unfortunately, as a returning officer, it's not possible to declare any party as the clear winner of this election on the first ballot. I hereby declare the election inconclusive. I, Joseph Adiola Fuakwe, hereby declare this election inconclusive.
Well, that was the declaration that, of course, concluded the election for Saturday. But as we heard from him, there'll be rerun election on Thursday. And now in the studio to discuss the Osun State election is Esther Uzoma. Esther Uzoma is a human rights activist and the election monitor. Esther just returned from Osun State. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Kiran.
I hope you're going to tell us more. You know, we didn't hear much of a vote buying this time around. All right. And also to talk to us from the point of view of security is the first PRO, the acting DCP, Jimo Moshood. Jimo, thank you as always for your being here this morning.
Thank you for having me, and good morning.
And I have not seen you in this kind of attire before.
This is equally part of our uniform. You have number 1, number 2, 3, 4.
This is number 1.
This number 3.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
All right, so let's begin with Esther Uzoma. Esther, the election was declared inconclusive. A lot of people having, I think basically a lot of people don't understand, you know, what it means to be inconclusive. And I think some people are actually talking out of ignorance, or they don't have a better understanding. So if you would give us an understanding, what would make an election be declared inconclusive? What were the factors that led to this election being inconclusive?
Thank you very much. INEC, in its wisdom, issued a statement on this, in this regard. And INEC stated that it hinged that decision on INEC guidelines and extant laws.
Okay.
I'm paraphrasing what INEC said. INEC stated that the cancellations in some area, if you look at the margin of win, that those cancellations would have made a difference.
Okay.
As such, they declared it inconclusive. That is what INEC said.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's the differential in terms of, you know, results that were cancelled is kind of more than the difference, you know, between each candidate.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, man. They did say that it's more than 100% of the votes differential.
But it's about 300 and something votes. That's the differential. Yes. But then votes that were cancelled, we're looking at about 3,000 plus. So.
Exactly. 900. Now, what was your take on the general on the election? You monitored.
Yes, we were on ground in. Well, before being in, Shobo on Wednesday, we've always been going there. Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room. We went there, pre-election, conducted, found out, generally mingled, and in our manner, in our according to our tradition, just generally found out what. One thing was very clear. Osun people wanted to vote. And one thing they were saying repeatedly, they said, listen, whoever gives us money, we will take, but we will vote our conscience. Okay? Osun people, there's a decency about them. Yes, they're decent people. They said before elections, they were saying that whoever gives them money, they will take, but that they will vote their conscience. Now, on election day proper, the Nigerian police, they mobilized, polls, citizens queued up before 8 a.m., waiting for INEC officials to open. The Nigerian police, they were there, immigration, prisons, customs, they were all there. on time, and they conducted themselves in an orderly manner. Now, the polls, 98% of the units opened on time. The polls opened on time, and then you could see there was clear, they differentiated. You know, there was the queuing. The queues for men and women, you know, were separate. They gave priority voting to elderly and PWDs. Okay? And then voting commenced in an orderly manner. In all PUs visited, when we asked them about the Braille, the ad hoc staff, they ask you what, they don't know what the Braille is. The Braille that is supposed to help
the blind.
Yes. You know.
They didn't know.
No, they didn't know.
But I thought they said there were centers where they specifically had the Braille.
Well, I'm giving you this.
Okay.
I'm a field worker.
Yes.
Yes. This is what we saw.
Okay, you started by enlightening us on the fact that the Osun people, voter education in Osun has penetrated.
Oh, yes. They said they will take money, but they will vote their conscience. Now, look at the pattern of taking money. It was sign language. I'm telling you.
What is this 1,000 or what is 1,000? Okay, all right.
The ingenuity of human beings.
That they deploy this time
and then you will see, yes, in an orderly manner.
You won't even know what's happening.
No, but what you will notice consistently across board. Then either you go right and then you follow that stream.
Okay, before we go to Moshood, you know, what is your assessment of INEC in with respect to the organizational aspect of the election?
Oh, logistics was perfect. What INEC did in Osun was that they deployed sensitive materials 48 hours before. Usually it's 24 hours. And then we asked, we took it up with the DIG. Said, why did you deploy 48 hours before? That is unusual. Usually deploy 24 sensitive materials. And he said that they have scanned the area, sufficient security. They now decided that it is better to deploy 48. So logistics was perfect. Okay. Near perfect.
All right. Let's now speak for the first PRO. That's the acting DCP, Jimoh Moshood. Now, Jimoh Moshood, first of all, before we begin to talk about the arrest and you know, efforts that you've made in terms of vote buying, there's something that everybody's saying with this election, that you deployed less manpower than you did for Ekiti, and we have an election that was more peaceful than what you had in Ekiti. What was the brain behind this?
Thank you so much. You know, like I said, even during the Ekiti media interview with you here, that we carry a security assessment, a threat level assessment of the entire state, Ekiti has 16 local government. And for every local government, you have 3 to 4 threats that can endanger peaceful election around the area. And we made that deployment. What people are looking at is that the entire figure in Ekiti was 30,000. Okay. But in Osun, those who are manning the election post, you have about 4,000 polling units, 14 points, 3,764 to be precise. Then you have 4 police personnel. If you take that 4 to about 4,000, you have 16,000. The racks entered, the super racks and others. Then we did not announce the personnel that we have 300 vehicles. If you take 300 vehicles, for example, you have 4 to 6 police personnel manning those vehicles. So if you take that figure, you are going to have much more huge number. But because you have to deploy adequately to ensure that there's a secure environment for election to hold. In Ekiti, nobody was killed, no injury to person, no house was burnt, and the election was very peaceful. In Osun, the same thing. But in Ekiti, you see the preparation even before the election, because we prepare in 3 phases, the pre-election, the election proper, and the post-election. The utterances and the conduct of those who are supposed leaders of the society was something that we took very seriously and we prepare ahead of time. And that is why issue of violence, lasting of violence was reduced to the minimum. In Osun, equally, the Ekiti people are peace-loving people. Osun people are equally peace-loving people. So the deployment in Osun, like the DIG spoke with the media, 18,000 for the polling unit, another area, 10,000 for the mobile force. So if you bring out the cumulative, which is to us, it's not important to begin to say They are 40,000, they are 50,000. Okay. But in as much as they have achieved the desired result, the Inspector General of Police, IGP Ibrahim Putu Idris, MPMNI, is very, very happy with the conduct of the... And quite a number, like the Police Service Commissions, most of the parties, and equally others critical stakeholders like INEC have appreciated the effort of the force. So if people are not trying to draw comparison or inferences on number, I think somebody will be mistaken. But we know the number we actually deploy.
I think the issue was actually that what people said was observers said was in Ekiti you had everywhere you could see, but you had less police presence in some of the polling units. They were not really close by, but then you could see that people were organized, and this election has been judged as peaceful as possible. But then let's look at the issue of arrest. I know that as at Saturday, you said you had about 2 or 3 persons who were arrested for vote buying. We still saw, movements of Okada, about 42 42 Okada were seized, and a lot more, arrests were also made. So far, how much arrest have you made?
We are still counting as we speak. I spoke before I entered the studio with the CP IG monitoring, who is investigating. I spoke with the DIG and the AIG on the preparedness. We police by culture. The culture of the people determine how you police them. I wouldn't want to be taken off. I'll answer your question. The culture of the people decide your strategies of policing them, not necessarily to have every policeman to every household also. So you draw a concept where largely people are law abiding. It makes your job easier. But when people are throwing us war of songs and other things, you still prepare for it. But on the issue of arrest, we are paraded, announced to the press, who send their photograph at people that were caught in the act of buying and selling of vote, though it has drastically reduced compared to what was witnessed in Ekiti, for example. So they were apprehended, they were arrested in the act. But there are quite a number of people too that were arrested because attempt is equally an offense, that were in the process of preparing. And that is why this time around, the Inspector General of Police deploy ahead of time the intelligence department of the 4CIID, the monitoring, the intelligence response team, all of them are on the ground gathering intelligence. So when you know that you are going to be arrested, it's enough deterrent for them not to engage in it. So as we speak, we have those that we've arrested for impersonating security personnel. They wore the tag, the clone, or the tag of security agencies, and they are wearing it. They belong to a party we are still investigating to get to the root of their sponsor so that we can get them all arrested.
Oh, okay, that's something you said actually that made sense to me and perhaps some other Nigerians with respect to the fact that all your security strategy is dependent on the culture of the people. But what happened in Ekiti is different from what happened in Osun, in which case you have to reflect that in trying to police, the area. But that may not be without challenges. So this might be the final question for you this morning. What are the challenges that you experienced in Ekiti? Because we still heard that there was ballot box snatching, like of course we've mentioned the vote buying and other activities that are not in tandem with what was planned with respect to the election. And what are you looking forward to against Thursday? We're going to have election in very few places.
Thank you so much. I think the IGP had directed that the personnel to still be intact. We are not drawing them, neither are we withdrawing them. Because those 7 units now, spread across those 4 local governments, is going to determine what about 1 million people have casted. If you carry all the total vote, maybe we're having close to 800 to 900,000. So we are not taking anything for chance, because those 7 polling units is going to determine what is already on the ground. So there's going to be deployment enough. The normal 4 police personnel, that of security will be in the unit, but there's going to be a massive deployment, not within the polling area, and not the one they will be what we call the covert deployment mostly, so that people can be free to go out to vote, so that we don't allow those 7 units that will not determine the fate of the entire state to cause a problem for the entire state. So then when you talk about the lesson we learned from Ekiti, you can see that we have improved from the lesson we learned from Ekiti in the deployment of Osun election. But largely, like I keep on saying, the utterances of the gladiators in Lekki was far away different from what you have in Osun, and that is to show you the difference. And we are very hopeful because even in Osun, we, apart from the stakeholder meeting that was held by INEC with the IG in attendance and all other security and safety agency and the stakeholders, the police arranged, we organized ours, I think 2 weeks before that of INEC, which is to look beyond Osun and to look to the
is there any challenge in Osun? Do you have any challenge of any sort in terms of operations?
No. Everything was okay for us because if you have 98% success, then you've had it all.
All right, very quickly, Esther Uzoma, we still had issues of invalid votes in these elections. What does that say about voter education? And that's your last question. And also, I'll also love you to take along with it preparations for Thursday.
All right. Just before that, another new thing that happened in Osun was that the Police Service Commission actually had their personnel in the situation room, and their duty was once you report any erring police officer, they will take it up immediately. That has never, yes, they were physically in our situation room. They were, in full complement. So that might have also influenced the good behavior, further buttressed it. Now, in generally, the
invalid votes.
Yes, the number of candidates on the ballot is unprecedented. We've never had before in Nigeria, that number of persons vying for,
one position.
No, it's unprecedented. So yes, so it's expected that voters will have such, even though INEC, brought out the sample, did voter education on that, even though we all did that, but it was expected.
Okay.
All right. So eventually, more education should be carried out. And then moving forward, for this Thursday, yes, we're on ground. That election is going to be the most, everybody will observe.
Every attention is going to be there.
Yes, everybody will observe.
It will also affect the security too.
Exactly. Everybody will observe that Thursday election. It's going to be the most observed singular contest in recent times.
And then I was going to also, very quickly, some people have said that this is the last, election before the 2019 general elections, that this is a litmus test for the 2019 election for INEC.
Well, Ekiti was a litmus test. Anambra was.
We have been having this litmus test.
Yes, right? but truly, particularly this issue of, inconclusive, exactly. We are going to see how prepared INEC is going to
for the larger election.
Well.
Thank you so much. At this point, we like to conclude this segment of our conversation. Esther Uzoma is a human rights activist and the election monitor. Thank you for coming. And I'm sure you're returning to Osun before Thursday.
Oh, very well.
All right. Acting DCP Jimo Mushood, thank you very much. Of course, I know you are going to be in Osun again.
Very well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are still on Good Morning Nigeria, and what we'll do next will be foreign news before we finally conclude today's edition of the Breakfast Show.
The U.S. government has expressed interest to help Liberia track down more than $100 million in missing cash. A spokesman of the U.S. Embassy in Liberia reiterated these while reacting to the case that has triggered a political crisis in the country. Liberian Information Minister Eugene Nagbe announced that several shipments of freshly printed Liberian dollars ordered from abroad by the central bank have been unaccounted for since they passed through the country's main ports in November 2017 and August this year. Minister of Justice Frank Musadin said the government has sought U.S. help in investigating the whereabouts of the cash, which is equivalent to nearly 5% of Liberia's GDP. Now, elsewhere, Macedonia's President George Ivanov has decried an agreement that would change the country's name to end a long-standing dispute with Greece, calling on its compatriots to boycott the vote, which is expected to take place on September 30. President Ivanov said he would not vote in the referendum, saying the deal with Greece is harmful and defeating for Macedonia. Ivanov made the comments during a speech to members of Macedonian diaspora in Detroit, Michigan. The agreement will see Macedonia, which currently bears the official title of the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, change its name to the Republic of North Macedonia, taking into account a disagreement with its southern neighbor, Chris.
Well, it's been generally clear skies this morning, but then here in Abuja, let's see what the rest of the day would be like here and, of course, other parts of the country.
A warm welcome. Rainfall activities over the extreme north are beginning to gradually reduce, as we expect residents around the north to begin their day with a fine weather conditions. The central states should be mostly cloudy in the morning, but with chances of early morning thunderstorms over Jos, Bauchi, some parts of Kaduna, Lokoja, Makurdi, and Yola axis. The southern cities are expected to be wet in the morning, with thunderstorms and rains over the coast and a few cities in the inland areas. But by afternoon hours, scattered thunderstorms and rains are probable in the coast, the inland of the south, the central states, and the northeastern region, while the northwestern part of the country are expected to be cloudy. Now I leave you with the temperature forecast. Join us again.
And that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thank you for being part of it. And we'll be back again tomorrow for a fresh edition of the program. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Rhoda Anonam. I do hope that you make the very best use of the very first day of the weekend. Do enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you for watching.